Hello there, welcome to Hoojies Garage. I'm standing outside the Saab, or former Saab design studio. That is, I don't know if it's owned by Nevs or not, but they have banners there saying Nevs. And they are selling old Saab parts in here right now. But there's going to be a lecture from, what was his name? Frank Smit or something?
Yeah.
That has been the technical director or engineering manager or something. And he's going to tell us a bit about the Emily story, which is a project that Nevs have engineered. So let's take a look in here. So, a bit funny, this is the old design or styling studio. Now they're selling parts here, but there used to be clay models on this floor and designers and surface modelers working up there. You got quite a good overview of the models if you were standing up there. But now they're just selling hides, seats, nuts and bolts. They're selling just about everything. Here we have the Emily GT, one of the 3 cars that has a license plate. And here's some sort of self-driving microbus, Pons I think it's called, a project that Nevs have made. But they haven't managed to sell this thing either. But this is quite some car, right? Early in the morning this place was completely crowded, full of people everywhere. So, tires and trunk lids and I don't know what, lots of stuff. This is a bit of an historic building. This is the stable, or yeah, I think stable. Long time ago they must have had horses or something there, but they've had Saab car mock-ups in there. And in the later years I think they had designers for materials and color and trim and stuff on the upper floor there. Look here. Some sort of Nevs IV prototype with most likely hub motors from Trollhättan or something. And another prototype there. These cars are not for sale apparently. But the monster is not here. Well. Interesting to see. Up there they have some stuff for sale. Let's take a look. So up here they seems to have been selling, what's this? They've sold a lot of stuff. Some drawings are still left here. Let's take a look at that. Someone that fancies a drawing of a Saab. What is it? Is it 99 or 900? Yeah, of course. The 99 5-door combi coupe, and they're selling it for 5,000 crowns each. That was not cheap. Well, sorry, I will not buy one of those. And so they were even selling one of those clocks, one of these things. Now it's time for the lecture, and it's supposed to be over there in that door or behind that door. Let's take a look.
welcome. I hope you had enjoyed your day so far. All the way from the US, I understood. Met a lot of Dutch people and German and Belgium. And I think this sale, the last sale as Nevs called it, has attracted a lot of visitors. I thought my estimate was it was 800 meters of queue before the door opened. Frank Smit is my name. I was one of the leading persons when we did the Emily project. Peter Dahl, who's also on this picture, led the actual project. So he conducted the engineers to this fantastic result. I was leading the engineering department at that time, so it was mainly my team and also a lot of consultants, I should add, that made this happen. We got this assignment in quite a funny way. We were in China for a budget meeting, and November 2019, Evergrande, the owner of Nevs, had invited all the European-owned Evergrande companies to come to China and explain what each company would like to do 2020 and how much money would be needed. So I was there as part of the management team. I was there. We had with us the Pons project, the self-driving bus, which is in the big sales hall. So we were in China. We had with us the Pons project and explained to the leadership that this is the future. We would like to continue with this project, and we asked for this budget. And already before we had explained how much money we would need, the chairman of Evergrande said, "Oh, no, take it away. It's ugly. There might be a future in those kind of products and services, but not now. We need normal cars." And they had started half a year earlier, so in summer 2019, they had started 12 new vehicle projects, and they did not have their own engineering organization at all, so they had hired German and Austrian engineering companies like Magna, ERDAG, FEV, or AVL. So 5 engineering companies, Austria and Germany, split it, the 12 projects. And me, who saw this happen, said, "Hello, I have 300 engineers here in Sweden. We have done cars since 1947. We can do one." But we didn't get any product. And all of us were, to say it in Swedish, pissed off about that. So I back up a little bit to the meeting in south of China at the headquarters of Evergrande. When we came in, there was already some sort of a engaged discussion ongoing between the Chinese. And I've been to China a lot of times. I cannot speak Chinese, but I've learned some words. And when you hear them say Nevs and protein, and see the gestures that they make, my conclusion was, I wonder if they are fighting over what do we need those companies for? We have the Germans and the Austrians. And then the meeting started. As I said, Pons was wiped away off the table, but at the end of the meeting, he said, wait, the chairman said, you, and those 3 U's were Nevs, my chairman, Stefan Tilk, Protein, the British company that made those motors, and a Dutch company called E-Traction, who makes e-axles for buses and trucks. I want the 3 of you to work together and show me how you can use and integrate those in-wheel motors in a vehicle if you develop it from scratch. I will send you a sketch, he said, in a few weeks and build a number of vehicles. And if you can show me that this works, I can make the decision. We will put it in mass production. And then he said, here is $30 million and you have 6 months time. 6 months. And think about how pissed off I was half a year earlier because we never got to work on one of their projects. So when my CEO, Stefan Tilk, poked me in the side and said, what should I answer? When he said 6 months, I said, we have to take this project. This can be our chance to show what we can do as a team. But for God's sake, ask for 18 months. But it's the bare minimum we could do something like this. So it was negotiated to somewhere in between 10 months. We should build 10 vehicles, was also decided, and this was very important, that if he wanted later on, this should be able to be produced. So in November we got this task, and that's also the origin of the name Emily, because when I called after the meeting, I called Peter Dahl, who was not in China back then. He was on his way to Turkey for another meeting. I called, we have got this project, we have to take this. I explained a little bit, we will get a sketch and be okay, I will consider how we could make this happen. So he called the day after and said, I think I know how we should do this. Let's hope it's a SUV on the sketch. But we have to call the project something. And he said, let's call it Leopold. And I said, Leopold? Why? Well, it's November 15. He said, it's Leopold's name day. In Swedish, every date has a name or a few names that are celebrated, like a birthday. I said, no. We got the task yesterday, November 14. So if we use a name day, it should be the 14th at least. And that was Emily. A much nicer name, I think, compared to Leopold. No Leopold in the room, right? So he had thought out and hoped for an SUV sketch, but what we got was this sketch, and I had it on the previous one too, a little bigger. A design sketch is typically not really realistic. It's usually extremely big wheels, too low windows, and everything is exaggerated. And so normally you have to translate a sketch into something that is practically doable, legal, because there's legal rules to comply to, like enough vision forward. And ergonomically also, you have to be able to get in and out without, be irritated or hurt yourself. But here is a very simple overlay. The blue lines is the Emily as we built it. The shaded colored vehicle is the sketch. So the shape itself is quite the same, but when we put in standard persons, and standard is really standard because these are called 95 percentile male, which means that this size body represents 95% of all the male people in Europe. When we did that, also in the back, you see the heel was outside of the vehicle, and also getting in and out was difficult, and the vision forward was too bad, so we have to make some modifications. And that's basically what we do in a normal project also. And a normal vehicle development project is 4 years. If you already have a platform, you can do it maybe a little faster if you reuse a lot of former vehicle components or systems. But 4 years is a typical project from sketch to sales start. And if you have to do a platform, you can add another 2 years, so 6 years. What we typically do is we engage only, and this is a symbolic number, but just to explain the magnitude. In the early stage of a project, we engage 6 people. And then we add, when we have a little better grip on what we need to do, we add up to 60 people. So 660, and then when we know exactly what we should do and how we can do it, we release the project to 600, a symbolic number. And that's just, have you been at in Sweden it's called the Kosläpp? Cow release. In the spring, when the weather is good enough, the cows are released out of the barns, and they are so happy they run everywhere over the field. Imagine a field without a fence, and you release cows. Sorry, engineers. I'm an engineer, I think I can say this. You have to explain to an engineer where not to go. So you have to some sort of put a fence around a project. And when we just got a sketch, then the fence is not really defined. Then maybe when we have defined the fence, we realize with the 60 people, oh, we should move it a little bit. So before that is done, don't release a project to 600 engineers, because they will go everywhere. And it's just an engineer's nature. Another example of such thing that you have to be more specific to an engineer is that when one of our owners said our product should be of Scandinavian design. If I ask Malek what's Scandinavian design, he will give me an answer. If I ask you, you will give another answer, and probably I get 4 different. Because I think granite, you think maybe wood, other think green. So you have to define. So with those 60 people, we could very quickly and efficiently already design the body panels based on the translation of the sketch and designers that were involved and engineers. We could very quickly design a 3D model of the first version of the body. We had also made a master timing plan, so a project plan, how to do the project and what to do first and in which sequence. Which is typically, I mean, we've done cars since 1947, it's typically the same sequence, but sometimes the block of activities is shorter than other times. Then, here is the Kosläpp, engineering kickoff. Here is where we thought now we have good grip on what should be done, what do we need to achieve in terms of performance or space. We explained this to the full team, and the full team was at the peak 320 engineers. Not only the ones that we had in my organization, but also a lot of hired contractors, which we typically do. But in late February, early March, some Swedish people came back from ski holiday in Italy, and they were ill. It turned out to be COVID broke out in Sweden. So suddenly we had not only the 10 months, which was extremely challenging, but also a high risk that people were not turning up to work. Luckily, very few of our staff became sick, but it restricted how close we could work together. We couldn't invite suppliers to us to come and help us on site. We couldn't travel a lot, at least. So it restricted. Plus, we could obviously forget about getting parts from abroad, especially China, which was already tight from a timing perspective, but it was tough. We had in about the same time we had built an electrical rig, which is basically mechano, the toy, like a frame that represents a car, but the only thing you see is the cables and every component with a wire or a contact of some sort. So anything electric, and just all the electric part that is put on the car, on the trolley, call it, in approximately the same area where it's supposed to sit in the car, And the purpose of such electrical rig is to start testing the electrical system. Is everything working? And how does the system react when something is pulled off? And also here we did, and I told you 10 months in comparison to maybe, if I compare this project with the 4 years that I just explained, a normal vehicle project, the first 2 years of work in a normal project we have done in 10 months. And normally in a car project, when the car body is of steel, also aluminum by the way, you have to order tools to get the steel plates pressed. And a normal process of getting the tools done, shipped to your facility where the panels will be stamped, that's a process somewhere about 6 to 12 months. We didn't have 6 months, we didn't have 12 months either. So we said already here to the tooling manufacturer, who we chose between a Chinese, who was very cheap, and a German, who was more expensive. We chose the German one because COVID, etc. They had the reputation of always deliver on time and extremely good quality. So we said, okay, more expensive, but we take it. And we said to them already in March, we were not really ready with the full body panels shapes yet, but we said, start milling the tools. And milling the tools means you have a big block of steel or aluminum, and you start milling the shape in negative for body panels. And we said, keep away from the last 3 centimeters of the final shape. Do the rough shape. We will send you an update in April. I think the last update was somewhere in May. Most of the pressed tools were ready somewhere in, I think it was June, July. June must have been. And there's 260-ish steel panels that needed to be put together. And I will continue with the body panels later. But apart from the electrical rig, we also modified a 9.3. I call it the monster. And we also typically do that because the driveline and the chassis needs a little more time than body panels and interior. So we chose to modify 9.3 and give it the front and rear axle of the Emily car, prototypes obviously. And well, you maybe understand why I call it the monster, because it doesn't look very nice, but it looks very impressive, which monsters typically are. But you see the extreme longer wheelbase. This is where normal the wheel arch starts of a 9.3, 2,675 millimeters in a 9.3 and 3,000, so 3 meters for Emily. It's also much wider, Emily, than a 9.3. So we had to modify the car big time, and there are a lot of electronics and air tank for the air suspension. So Emily has air suspension, it has active dampers, it has 5-link rear axles, really, really nice chassis. And also 4 in-wheel motors in this car. So with this car or tool or the monster, we can tune and we can start learning about the chassis, tune the powertrain or the motors, which was very helpful. In the meantime, we worked obviously also on the interior, which is the front seats are 9.3 electric seat frames, but we made new foams and what's it called, upholstery. And here I come back to the body manufacturing. When the body panels were ready in Germany, they were shipped here for putting it all together. And it was in the middle of summer, start of summer holiday for most of the workers. And Peter said, he went to the factory and he said, I'm going on a few weeks holiday now and you have to work. Is that okay? And they said, yeah, that's fine. We love to work now. Finally we can do something. And then he said, I have a tough question. The first body that you put together, 260 panels, must be the first car. So they said, we never do that. The first one is always crooked or not really good enough to be the car. And they negotiated a little bit and I said, well, okay, said Peter, please try best you can do. And if the first one is really too bad, then we should take number 2. But they managed. The first panels that were put together became body number 1 and also VIN number 1. That's number 2, by the way. VIN number 1 went to England, was in YouTube. It's here now. But yeah, paint was also done here in-house, obviously inspected fully. So it's a full steel body. The only thing that is carbon fiber is the front fenders, and that's just because we didn't have any time anymore. Then, in August, when the first bodies, I think there were 2, then number 1 and number 2, when they were spray painted, next phase was putting it all together. And if you haven't seen in the cinema the 3 short movies yet, please do. They're also on YouTube, by the way. But in those movies you hear Annika speak in Swedish, but subtitled. It also is very rare that when we have put it together and tried to start it, that it actually works. There's always some electrical connector that is not really good, or software that didn't really work as planned, or something mechanical, by the way. But this time, already an hour or so after the first trial, it worked, and it drove off the assembly line, which is in the manufacturing plant at the other side. It's basically a short copy of the full production line that was, not anymore, but it's fully manually labored, and you have to push these forward to the next station. Yes, vehicle verification, testing. We did obviously very little testing. We had the mule or the monster, which could do some testing, but development was always still ongoing until the point where we said, now you have to stop because we have to order tools. But we had numerous laps on the test track here behind the building, and well, I think actually this fat brake line still is visible on the track. Suddenly one of the brake calipers on the rear axle broke and blocked it all. And the story behind it is that Protein, the manufacturer of those electrical motors, had an integrated brake on the motor, but we were not really happy with it. It wasn't really capable enough for a heavy vehicle like this, 2,175 kilos. So we, together with Protein, we further developed the braking system, and it's a really, there is pictures later if you want to see, but it's not a conventional brake system like your Saabs have. It's an integrated little disc, like 4 centimeters wide, around the motor on the inside, and the brake caliper is quite small with brake pads like this big. Electrical cars have possibility to brake with the electric power, so regeneration it's called. And we actually could, if we want, block the rear wheels electrically also. But legal requirements require that you have to have a hydraulic brake also. But in electric cars, brakes are hardly used because the electric brake or regeneration force can be used, and therefore a lot of brake discs rust a lot. and with that comes a reduced braking performance initially until the rust is gone, then you can brake full. We recognized that and decided that the Emily car should have not steel brake discs but an aluminum alloy instead, so it won't rust, and the pads are dimensioned for life despite the fact that they are only this big. But shit happened in this project also. And then in September we were supposed, that was like 10 months into the project, we were supposed to show the product for the executives of Nevs initially. And then the plan was to also invite Evergrande management to Sweden to come and see it. I have driven so many prototype cars and the test cars, and you always start very carefully. And if things squeak or not really behave, you're squeezing your butt before you can gain confidence, and then you dare to go a little faster. This one, when I drove the Emily car for the first time, I thought after 10 minutes that this is ready. It feels good. So very quickly we dared to increase the speed. The plan was to build 10 vehicles, 10 functional vehicles to fully demonstrate the benefits of those in-wheel motors, not only, let's say, in the driving experience, but also the extra space you can create in the car, etc., etc. And we got a budget from Evergrande that day in November 19, but they were continuously paying the bills of all the parts, and suddenly they stopped paying. So we decided, wise of historical Nevs years, we shouldn't put the suppliers in debt. We should stop ordering parts so that they can get paid while we still have money. So we stopped, and the result is that only 6 of the 10 were really completely built, and we have one half car that is standing around somewhere. And we have a lot of parts left, but there could not be a complete Emily car built out of them. Well, the picture of the first 3 cars on the test track here. This is number 1. It was initially camouflaged. This is number 2 here in the room, and this is number 3, which is elsewhere now. And well, a very small part of the team that was working on it. Another short film with studio photos, by the way, not AI or real cameras. Every time. Yeah, we all of us that had worked on Emily, the 320 engineers, a lot of suppliers also, they fell in love with the product. And even though I had said multiple times to my team that this is not a car that will go into production, this is a project that shows what we can do as a team. Remember that. But you can't help it if it's such a beautiful shape and it's such a nice driving experience. Everyone wanted it to go to production. And we had already in 2022 some hope and thoughts about, okay, if we can sell the project, we can see it go into production. So we went on request of a party in Spain. We went to Barcelona for them to be able to experience and do a proper due diligence, as it's called, research in the technology and blah blah. So we went to Barcelona, to the Barcelona test track. Peter driving, Torbjörn, who's next to the red car, who is our very, very, very best chassis engineer. He's probably one of the best in the world. Extremely tough conditions, 38 degrees outside, and here we could see the effects of the short time, because the battery went hot quite quick into this driving session. And we had Juan Luis Perez, a former Formula 1 driver, doing the evaluation for that company that invited us. So he was sort of impressed. He said it's a Gran Turismo. It's not a racing car, but he thought it was quite a good package. Yes, in 2023, just remember, already late 2020 when we were ready with the car, so I skipped a year. When we were ready with the cars, Evergrande had stopped paying, and they couldn't finance Nevs anymore, so we tried to stay alive. Nevs sold the technical development center to the city's real estate company. They sold part of the factory, and they sold the test track to the city of Trollhättan. But by the year shift 2022-2023, Evergrande had, they were out of options. They said, we have to close Nevs. So Nina, I go back one more step. The back then CEO, Stefan Tilk, got fired because they thought he didn't succeed to find new owners for Nevs and no new owners for Emily. Nina replaced him in February 2023, and a week after her assignment to become the next CEO of Nevs was to basically close down. Everyone out, only keep 20 people to preserve the buildings and so on. And I was employee number 29, one of the very first that got employed by Nevs, so it was really tough also for me to be fired. Not only that, I had to fire my 320 engineers. Really tough period. But in some way I have been avtrubbad, Swedish. I've been numbed sort of by all the 11 Nevs years have been ups and downs, and it doesn't really affect me anymore. Not good. Psychologists would love me as an object, but so she had to close down everything, and shortly after that we said, actually Peter pushed for it. He said, we have to go public with this project. People that are now fired, engineers, the 320, they need this project to be seen for their own sake, but also for them to give the best conditions to find a new job, because then they could tell, look at this, I have been part of this project. Those components are my components. I can do this. So we decided to make it public in March, and we invited Automotive and Sport, the Swedish version of the magazine, and back then main journalist Ulrik Söderlind, He was here 2 days, 2 full days, documented not only the Emily project but also a little bit Pons and some other projects that we've done. Because in the 11 years I have been part of 15 Nevs projects. 15. Only one went into production, that's the electric 90. Everything else was stopped before completion due to not enough money, changed plans, new directives from the board, frustrating. He dedicated this Ulrich Söderlund 4 issues of automotive sport with articles about Emily. And in one of the last, he compared it to the Porsche was it Taycan? And maybe he was a little bit biased, but he thought the Emily was the better choice. After that, and you guys were there too, a lot of things went viral, and that helped attract some investor candidates to us. This is the Top Gear issue. I think it's now over 2 million shows. So it triggered sort of the interest of people that were looking for a car project that they can continue with. And since Nevs, after this layoff, there was 20 people left, of which 15 were maintenance workers for the factories, infrastructure. No one had the full knowledge of the Emily project except for actually four of us. So we helped Nevs a lot with discussions and preparing documentation for investor candidates as of early 2023. Then in November 2023, we had already had some visits from some in the spring and summer. One guy from Lebanon came, EV Electra was his company, and he decided to write a contract. He wanted to buy it. I will tell you a little story. I was with my wife on a Saturday at the shopping mall on the other side of the bridge. Peter had got the news that the contract was signed. I picked up the phone, Peter called me, and he mentioned, so I went a little bit away from my wife, and my reaction must have been, someone had died. Because she asked me, what happened? Someone hurt? No, they wrote the contract with Mr. Iyad Mohammed. He had visited us earlier, and to be honest, very early, the feeling was not correct. And luckily, after some months of struggle with him as a person, as a personality maybe more, and also the fact that he didn't comply with the terms of the contract, Nevs decided to abort the contract. And you cannot imagine how many positive reactions Nevs has received after they announced this. We are breaking up with Mr. Iyad Mohammed. He has not received anything except for the things that already had been shown by ourselves, so pictures, some movies. He has not got any real documentation that could help him make the cars. So all the hard disks are still here, all the cars are still here. But we are still looking for investors, and I also convinced Nevs that, well, maybe we should invest a little time and money to go somewhere where we can meet a lot of rich people. So we went to Mallorca, a very fancy golf club. I shipped 2 cars, that's the same car again, and the silver one, which is actually my favorite car. There's only one silver car. I like to be different. We went, Peter and Peter's wife, my wife, went with us, and also Nina came down. And the purpose was to see if we can find people that would be willing to invest. And we stood there 3 days. There were a lot of people, and actually some contacts we managed to get. Had some discussions with them, but the decision was taken to not invest. But one story I would like to tell, that at some point, let's say 20 people came out of the golf courses behind it. And they were waiting here and looked around on the cars. I understood from when I talked to some of those people that they were waiting for a shuttle bus, an electric shuttle bus between the golf club and some hotels, and it didn't turn up. So some of them were calling, some of them were tired of waiting, and some of them were talking to us around the car. And one elderly gentleman stepped into that car on the passenger seat, and my colleague Martin sat behind the wheel, and they started discussing, and I was somewhere here in front of talking to someone else who apparently knew this guy. And the guy I talked to, his wife was born in south of Sweden, but they lived in Geneva now, and blah blah blah. And he said, him there in the passenger seat, he has lots of money. He has luxury brands, and okay, I don't recognize the most rich people in the world just by their face. So someone in our company will start luxury brands, searching in Google, and Bernard Arnault. Either he's number 1 in the world, richest, or number 2 or number 3. Depends on the stock market. He was in the car, and later he got my details, because I went to him, of course, kneeled down and heard the discussion, and he was talking about the display, that things should just go smooth, not too fancy, it should work, he said. Later I understood from Martin, who was behind the wheel, Bernard Arnault asked Martin, what will be the price of this car when it's on the market? And Martin's first reaction was, well, how much money do you have? With a smile. Listen, how much money do you have? A question asked to the richest man in the world. So we laughed a lot after that, and I guess that Mr. Arnault also has laughed about it when he returned to his hotel. He was driven, he and his wife and this gentleman that I talked to were driven by Peter to his hotel, because the bus never turned up. And it was not the regular hotel. There were white gloves, people coming out to open the doors. So it was nice. A great experience. We had some contacts out of it. I met Victor Müller, also there. He lives on Mallorca. We knew that. His immediate reaction was, I don't believe in electric cars. And then he took the steering wheel, started driving, and he was impressed. But still, he doesn't like electric cars. But he said, I will try to help. And, some phone calls after that, but nothing more. We're still working on investor candidate search. It's not dead yet, but there's not a lot of speed anymore. To everyone who wants to listen, I say there must be a way. I will not give up, and I still stand for that. I will not give up. This can go into production. It's not just a car. It's much more than that. It has a soul, if you ask me. Everyone who has experienced it up close, or even got the chance to ride in it or drive, says this is something really special. You're from the US. I had 2 US guys here. Both of them had worked in the auto industry more than 25 years. One was a little shorter than I am, one was a little bigger than I am. This was summer 2022, and when I talked this story, the shorter one said, stop, please stop, I have to give you a hug. This is amazing. And then I invited the other guy to sit in the back seat. And he said, no, thank you. It typically doesn't work for me. He wasn't really big, but he was quite tall. And he said, it typically doesn't work for me. Please try, he said. And he said, when he was in the car, he said, I still have a little room in front of my knees, and I don't have to sit like this. So they were really amazed, and again, 25 plus years in GM and Ford, and that is really, that's how do you say it, proof and recognition, that's the best word, recognition for all of the engineers that have put their souls in this and made this happen. It's fantastic car. If you, oh yes, this is also nice. It's on the movie also, but when we started to think about when it should go into production, I don't say if anymore, when, it must have some siblings, of course, some different models. So this one, the sedan, is here. We have 6.5 functioning cars. All of them perform the same. 5,000 kilometers on that one, 5,000 on the silver one, and 5,000 on number 1. No issues. Software mature. So if they are in a bad mood, you have to restart them 3 times. But when they have started in the right way, they work, whatever. A convertible. I have fighted years during Nevs to get an electric convertible on the road. Never succeeded, never got the funding for it. But if I can decide, there will be an Emily version with a soft top. Shooting brake, this is a wrong angle, I think, for the shooting brake, and this is the wrong color for the shooting brake. But on the movie, in the cinema, there's a silver one spinning around. Extremely nice body shape. And the last one, the blue one, is a coupe, which is a little, it's as short as the convertible, but only 2 doors. Combi coupe, we should call it in Saab terms. So we have thought of a model program. We have done, with the help of a consultancy firm, a market analysis, basically asking them, here's the car, is there a market for it? And they said, yes, there is. And they calculated how many we could sell. They recommended the pricing, 125,000 euros. We should sell in most of the Western European markets, and the volume would be 6 to 10,000 per year. So it's quite an exclusive car, which is good for profit or profitability. It's also due to the fact that if we have to lower the price, we have to either increase the volume, and then if we do that, if we could do that, I don't think we can, but if we could do that, you also have to compete with a lot of more competitors. But at 125,000 euro, we would be on par with a cheap Porsche Taycan, medium equipped Tesla Model S, and Audi e-tron, and so on. Good. Some minutes left. There's no presentation anymore after this, so we have time enough for questions.
Initially, you showed an electric rig somehow. Where does all the electronics come from?
The electronic system is a combination of existing systems from Saab models, 9.3, newly developed but highly immature software, and some, let's say, home or hobby Raspberry Pis. There's Raspberry Pis in the car. Yeah, the mirrors, for example, are Raspberry Pi displays. But it's a mix of highly immature and a few mature things.
So nothing from any other vehicle somewhere around the world?
Steering rack, if you can call it. It's an electric assisted steering, but steering rack is taken from another car.
Okay, thanks.
Window regulators and the switches are from 9.3. How do you call it, the door hinges are from a 9.3. But a lot of it is new also. And that's also why each car has costed 35 million Swedish kronor. So when we have visitors which are allowed to drive themselves, like journalists or so, and they become a little heavy-footed, I usually say it costs 35 million Swedish kronor and they back off. And they are not, it's also a thing. You see there's a registration plate on it. We have 3 cars with registration plate. So 3 of them are registered. We can drive around with them, on which we have done and will do on public streets.
No homologation. No homologation done.
No. But the design and the timeline shows at least 10 months. At some point, if you remember, I said here we had to stop changing things because we had to order the tooling, order components. But the engineers have worked more than that. So we have done, I can just switch to some, this presentation is 75 pages. There's a full 3D model made, but what I wanted to show is this is the motors. Here's the brake disc that I spoke about, very small, bolted onto the rotor, which is behind the rim. We had, so the engineers have worked more. This is the technical specifications from the 6 cars that we have built, the one that's standing there. But we worked more, and the specification of the cars, if they were going to production, is not exactly the same. The car will, for example, be a little higher. Now it's less than 1.40 meters. But what I wanted to show is this. We have done crash simulations and improved the construction. So some of the improvements, or most of the improvements, are not in the physical cars. But if we would get the money and the go-ahead to continue the project, we have already a better start than the cars that are standing there. Right? Sorry, it wasn't planned. But if I can decide, they will be called Sonett. I own the brand Sonett. I will be involved in the continuation of this. If I can decide, this will be called Sonett.
Who has made the design?
I asked him when I had bought this was not supposed to be a part of it. Look, now it's on.
Now it's on YouTube.
I have always, when me, Peter Dahl, and some other colleagues were eating lunch at the restaurant at the development center, I'm working on a project car at home, a TVR Griffith, a British sports car, which is a V8 engine, so I always dreamt that I should make it electric at some point. First I want to enjoy the V8, but then it maybe can be electric. And I said, well, that car is just a tubular frame chassis with not a carbon fiber, with a glass fiber body on it. You could make a different body on the same type of chassis and call it Sonett. That's how it started. And then I started wondering, who owns the Sonett brand? And it was Nevs. So I asked Nina and the management team, can I buy it? And they said yes. And then I asked one of our designers, Hirash Razagi, can you, based on the Sonett IV, can you make a renewed version of that? And this is the result. But that's much better. And the convertible, of course. We actually made, I didn't show you this, but we made an SUV, or actually a crossover sketch, also only a sketch of the convertible, shooting brake, and the coupe. There's renderings that can spin around. But we made a shorter version of the shooting brake which was put a little bit higher up, and some claddings like the X cross-country Volvos. It's nice, but I think still this is better. Also from a... No, I think it's better. Yep.
On the Volvo test track, Mr. Krösek was of course invited.
Yep.
Can you tell us anything more about that? And also, what did he feel more about the car? Anything more you can...
His first reaction was when he saw it, he said, "This is what the next 9.5 should look like." He said, and then he got the opportunity to both drive and sit in the back seat, as you saw, and he was really impressed. He was part of the. He had also involvement with Evergrande, because when Evergrande purchased Nevs, they also invested a little bit in Koenigsegg through Nevs. So there was a relationship, and he was generally impressed. He saw Saab in it, and he saw the passion, I think, in it, in us all. And he still has a weak heart for this place and us. And we can still call him and ask for help if we want to. But he has made it clear that he cannot invest. He has a lot to do with his own company. His brand is very precious, of course. He has built a fantastic brand, and you have to be careful with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Hello again. Interesting lecture, I think. Very interesting. So now you know a lot more about that history. And talking about history, so that's the design department over there. There was the technical engineering center, or whatever you would call it. Behind me here is the old factory as such. Over there is an interesting place. That's where the traffic control was. Just behind the chimney there is a little bit of a higher building. So that's kind of something that's really original. But now, as you can see, the grass is growing and nothing is made here. So this is history. And that's all from Hoojies Garage today. Take care. Bye-bye.